If you're a high-performing executive, I need you to answer this question honestly. How many projects are you juggling right now? 5, 20? Here's the uncomfortable truth. You're probably being set up to fail. Not because you're not capable, but because you're too capable. In the next 12 minutes, I'm going to show you why your best leaders are burning out at record rates, and more importantly, what you can do about it before you lose them. Let's talk about the magnet effect. In 2024, 56% of leaders reported experiencing burnout. That's up from 52% the year before. But here's where it gets really concerning. 75% of C-suite executives have seriously considered quitting their jobs for roles that better support their well-being. Think about that for a moment. 3 out of 4 of your top leaders are looking at the exit. And it's not just the C-suite. Middle managers have it even worse. 71% report being burned out more than any other group of workers. This isn't a time management problem. This isn't about working harder or being more efficient. This is a systemic crisis that's quietly eroding organizational capacity from the top down. And at the heart of it is something I call the magnet effect. So what exactly is the magnet effect? It's simple, and you've probably experienced it yourself. The magnet effect is when your most reliable, high-performing executives attract a disproportionate and unsustainable workload precisely because they're so dependable. Here's how it works. You have a new project. It's important. It's urgent. Who do you assign it to? You assign it to Sarah because Sarah always delivers. Sarah has a track record. Sarah gets things done. But here's what you don't see. Sarah is already managing 15 other projects. She's working nights and weekends. She's skipping lunch. She's canceling her vacation. And she's not saying anything because she doesn't want to let you down. This is the paradox of high performance. Your greatest strength becomes your greatest vulnerability. Reliability becomes a liability. The magnet effect is driven by a combination of individual strengths and organizational weaknesses. On the individual side, you have leaders who consistently produce quality work, who have strong relationships across the organization, and who are deeply dedicated to the mission. These are your go-to people. On the organizational side, you have a lack of workload visibility, unclear delegation processes, and insufficient awareness of how projects are actually distributed. You're operating blind. So what happens? The path of least resistance is to assign new projects to the person you know will get them done. It's efficient in the short term, but in the long term, it's a disaster. Now you might be thinking, this has always been a challenge. Why is it so much worse now? Great question. We're living in the aftermath of widespread layoffs and budget cuts. Organizations are operating with reduced resources while maintaining or even increasing ambitious goals. The pressure is relentless. And here's the kicker. We're still navigating the tail end of a pandemic that fundamentally changed how we work. The always-on work culture has intensified. The boundaries between work and life have blurred. And the economic uncertainty has made everyone feel like they need to prove their value constantly. Let's talk about the cost, because this isn't just a human problem, it's a financial problem. Employee burnout costs companies between $4,000 and $21,000 per employee per year in lost productivity. But when we're talking about executives, that number jumps to over $20,000 per leader annually. For a mid-size organization of 1,000 employees, that's approximately $5 million per year lost to burnout. And that's just the direct cost. What about the strategic cost? When your executives are burned out, they lose their ability to provide vision, build influence, and coach their teams. They shift from strategic thinking to pure execution mode, and when that happens, your organization loses momentum. 43% of organizations lost at least half their leadership teams in the past year. Half. That's not turnover, that's an exodus. So what do we do about it? I'm going to give you 3 strategies you can implement starting this week. These aren't theoretical. These are practical, actionable steps that address the root causes of the magnet effect. Strategy number 1, make workload visible and prioritize strategically. The first step in solving the magnet effect is bringing the invisible workload into the light. High-performing leaders often take on extra work without complaint. They don't want to seem incapable. They don't want to let you down, so they suffer in silence. You need to change that dynamic. Here's what this looks like in practice. When you're assigned a new project, instead of just adding it to your already overflowing plate, you weigh it against the organization's broader goals. Then you present a prioritized plan to your boss. You might say something like this: I'm happy to take on this new initiative. Currently, my top 3 priorities are X, Y, and Z. To ensure this new project gets the attention it deserves, which of these existing priorities should be de-escalated or delegated? Notice what you're doing here. You're not saying no, you're not complaining, you're taking the initiative to recommend a strategic path forward. This achieves 2 critical goals. First, it makes your current workload visible to your boss. Second, it reframes the conversation from passive acceptance to active strategic alignment. You're demonstrating that you're thinking like a leader, focused on allocating your time and energy where they'll have the greatest impact. Strategy number 2, clarify ownership and lead across the organization. As you advance in your career, your projects increasingly span multiple functions and departments. Leading across the organization is a critical skill. But here's what it doesn't mean. It doesn't mean doing everything yourself. It means bringing the right people together and clarifying ownership, especially when someone else has the expertise to lead a project more effectively. If you're assigned a project that falls outside your core expertise or capacity, propose an alternative approach. This could involve recommending another leader who's better suited to own the initiative, or suggesting a co-leadership model. For example, let's say you're in operations and you're asked to lead a project that's heavily dependent on market research. You might invite the CMO to co-lead it with you. You could frame it like this: this project has significant overlap with both of our areas. I believe we'll achieve a stronger outcome if we co-own the strategy. Would you be open to that? This approach does 2 things. It balances the workload, and it models a more collaborative and effective way of sharing responsibility at the executive level. You're solving the delegation problem from the top down, creating a culture where work is assigned based on expertise, not just availability. Strategy number 3, initiate candid conversations about capacity and trade-offs. Sometimes deadlines are immovable. Your peers are already at full capacity. There's no one else to hand the project to. In these situations, the temptation is to quietly absorb the extra work. This is the most dangerous path. It reinforces the magnet effect and accelerates your journey toward burnout. At the executive level, your workload doesn't just affect you. It impacts your team and the entire organization. So you need to initiate a candid conversation with your boss. This isn't about complaining. This isn't about refusing the work. It's about clarifying expectations and defining the strategic trade-offs that need to be made. Approach the conversation as a peer, with a focus on finding a sustainable solution. You might say, I appreciate your trust in me with these high-priority projects. I want to ensure I can continue to deliver at the level you expect. However, the current volume of new assignments is stretching my capacity, and I don't believe it's sustainable. Can we discuss which of these projects are most critical to our goals so I can direct my time and attention accordingly? If it becomes clear that the root cause is a resourcing issue, it's appropriate to broaden the conversation to the larger organizational pattern. You can use your own experience to highlight the systemic challenge and propose solutions. Maybe it's time for a review of each team's projects and deadlines to realign resources with the most critical priorities. Maybe you need to hire. Maybe you need to kill some projects. But you can't solve what you don't discuss. Now, those 3 strategies are powerful for individuals. But if you're a board member, a CEO, or a senior leader responsible for organizational health, you need a systemic solution. That's where the magnet effect framework comes in. This framework focuses on 3 core pillars: visibility, balanced delegation, and strategic alignment. Visibility means creating a clear and accurate picture of team and individual workloads. Implement workload management tools. Conduct regular capacity planning reviews. Encourage open dialogue about bandwidth. Balanced delegation means establishing a fair and effective process for assigning new tasks and projects. Develop a clear delegation framework. Assign projects based on expertise, not just availability. Promote a culture of shared ownership and co-leadership. Strategic alignment means ensuring that all work is aligned with the organization's most critical priorities. Regularly review and communicate strategic goals. Empower leaders to prioritize and de-escalate tasks. Foster a culture where it's safe to discuss trade-offs. By implementing this framework, you move from a reactive model of workload management, where projects are assigned to the most willing and capable leaders, to a proactive model where work is distributed strategically and sustainably. This doesn't just protect your best leaders from burnout, it builds a more resilient and effective leadership team. So here's where we are. The data is clear. Your best leaders are at risk. The magnet effect is real, and its consequences are severe. 56% of leaders are burned out. 75% of executives are considering leaving. 43% of organizations have already lost half their leadership teams. The strategies I've outlined today provide a path forward, but they require a fundamental shift in how we think about performance, workload, and leadership itself. So let me ask you the question I started with, but with a twist. Who are your magnets, and what are you going to do to protect them before their brilliance burns out?